Good morning, everyone. My name is Tim Dodd. I'm the Education Editor at the Financial Review newspaper, and I've been invited here today to moderate the expert panel on what we have seen in the first session this morning, which I must say, even though I'm familiar with this area of educational technology, I was blown away by. I thought it was extremely exciting. So we are pleased to be able to have a session now where we can hear more from the best network and also from universities, which are starting to incorporate this technology into what they are doing. And plus we also have a student who can talk about it from their point of view. So on the panel we have senior representatives from 3 universities, Professor Pip Patterson, who is the Deputy Vice-Chancellor Education at Sydney, Beverly Oliver, who is the Deputy Vice-Chancellor of Education at Deakin University, who is on the screen. Welcome, Beverly. And we have Kirsty Forrest,
big brother,
who is the Associate Dean of Learning and Teaching at Macquarie University. And these 3 universities are not currently members of the BEST network, but I believe they're thinking about it. Plus we have the head of the BEST network, Professor Nicholas Hawkins, who we've already heard from, and Draw Ben Name from Smart Sparrow, who also made that wonderful impromptu demonstration this morning. And finally, but certainly not least, because in many ways he's the most important, is James Lawler, who is the president of the Australian Medical Students Association, because it's the students who will be learning using this technology, and we'll hear his reaction about what he's seen so far. Now, we also have a couple of roving microphones to pass around the audience, but look, we'll just start out by talking with the universities about what they're seeing in this and what this type of technology brings to their efforts to change the way learning and teaching takes place. And Pip, I'll start with you. As you're in the middle of sort of the major changes at the University of Sydney, which have been talked about, so how important is the flipped learning model in introducing that? And what would you be using out of what we've seen this morning of the BEST network?
Okay, thanks, Tim. Let me say sort of 2 main points, I think. The first is that our students tell us over and over again that they are really looking for rich interactive learning resources, and of course through this technology that's something that we can create for them. But they're also looking for a lot more direct interaction, discussion, contextual information about the kinds of problems that we give them. So providing some things that they can do in their own time actually also allows us more time to provide that very special interaction around learning that they're seeking. So I think both of those things are really important. And then added to that, the idea of actually collaborating around the development of resources is also important, because it's through discussion and through attempts at creating new learning resources that all of our staff kind of undergo that very creative aspect of that they engage creatively in the design of learning experiences. And doing that in a collaborative setting allows everyone to learn from each other and ultimately build higher quality learning experiences for students. So for all of those reasons, I see this as, this kind of thing is very important.
Thank you, Pip. Now, I'd also like to explore what this means for teaching staff and academic staff in a university. Beverly, let me go to you at Deakin, because I know that you at Deakin are well advanced in introducing new ways of teaching using technology. How do you bring the staff along with you?
Thank you, Tim, and good morning, everyone. And I just got to hear half the introduction, and I don't want anyone to move, but I can't see who's in the room, but I'm going to plough on. But first of all, thank you for accommodating me and enabling video conference. I know it's never trivial, but it is modelling the practice that we're talking about, so thank you. So how do you bring staff along with you? Well, in many of our universities, they have been doing this, for example, for many, 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 many years. And the channel might have been different, but the mode is similar. That is, dealing with students who are not necessarily in a face-to-face context. So I think a lot of our universities have a lot of experience in this. But I think also, Tim, the fundamentals of teaching and learning, I maintain, no matter what the tools are, the fundamentals don't change. And that is that good teachers make the outcomes clear, focus on connecting and curating resources, but connecting with students and encouraging them and giving them good feedback, and then assessing and credentialing. So in my way of thinking, and I'm sure there are many people in the room who agree, is that the actual physical act of teaching is less important now, and the creation of resources like the Smart Sparrow and Best Network resources, which are standalone, self-directed and interactive beyond just watching movies, is the way to go. So how do you bring teachers along with that? Well, they are on the spectrum, and I mean that in the nicest way, they are on the spectrum of being highly, highly skilled and innovative to less skilled, and that's not an age thing. I think we often leap to that as well, that it's around convincing people that this is going to make your life easier and better, and student learning and standards actually better too. And I think some of those conversations using those things make it easy for people. I will say though, while I've got the mute button off, that one of the challenges is really around our technology systems. You know, we live in a very slick digital age where Skillshare, edX, Coursera, the look and feel is not clunky, and it's seamless and elegant. And I know people like Pip and I deal with learning management systems which were not built recently, and they are very large content management systems with deep tentacles in the institution. So I guess that's one of our challenges, to make it, to go back to your question, Tim, and I'll stop talking now, to make it seamless and elegant for teaching staff as well, and not one more clunky system with another abbreviation that I have to kind of navigate my way around.
I get the point about a clunky system, and we'll come back to that one later. But let's go on to Kirsty from Macquarie, because as Macquarie is a university which is rapidly building in the medical and health sciences area, you've got a new hospital there, so how might the Best Network fit into what you're doing, Kirsty?
Thank you for the question. Can you hear me at the back? Do I need to move? No. Okay, I'll move it nearer. I'll move nearer. It couldn't come at a better time for us. Macquarie University, as you hear, we're expanding a new faculty of medicine and health science. We're developing a new undergraduate programme of a Bachelor of Clinical Science that's a fast-track 2-year degree, and that's going live next year. And it's great timing for us. With that course coming online next year, being part of this network, we see as very, very important to the development of that degree. We are doing new and innovative ways of delivery. We're doing fast-track units. We're doing programmatic assessment across the 2 years. And the material and the community provided by the Best Network we see as something very advantageous to us. And they use the words with us, the Best Network, they call us a greenfield site, and we do too. And we see that as great because we've got quite a few academics with us who have never done teaching before. We were a research-only institute a little bit, the School of Advanced Medicine, and it's very interesting bringing the academics along to bring them through this process of learning about teaching and new ways of teaching. In some ways it's great because they don't come with baggage of how it should be done. And so this has been a very interesting time for us in this development.
Yes, well, And teaching in this way means that academics will have to work with teams of other people, including instructional designers. If they are teaching in a flipped classroom, they have to become expert facilitators and not just lecturers from the stage. So here's one for all of the 3 university people here. How will they react to having to move to this new way of operating, and how will you draw them into that? Pip?
Well, I think we'll use the tried and true method of letting our enthusiasts go first and lead the way, and I think that's often the way it is. And then, we'll obviously work up some of those professional learning opportunities that might assist people to change the way they do things. We at the University of Sydney make grants available for people to invest in changes in pedagogical approach and changes in curriculum. And the students, of course, are a powerful voice as well, because they certainly don't hold back in providing feedback to staff on the kinds of experiences they like to have in the classroom and outside the classroom. So I think with all those forces at work, we slowly change.
Mm-hmm. Beverly?
Yes, I would add to that, and that is the way to go, Pip. As you know, I'm sure you've done this before too, but what's really been helpful for us is, as I said before, this wasn't entirely new at Deakin. One of the things we did do, and it may sound trivial and slightly naff, but we changed the language because we wanted to really accelerate this 3 years ago. And so if we had gone to the staff and said, now we want to do online learning really well, been doing that, know all about it. So we deliberately changed the language to cloud, and that's where that might sound unusual when it first comes to your hearing, but the idea is what we mean by cloud is it's got to be as good as what we're doing now, where the screen almost disappears. And I don't mean we just should lecture by video conference, but we should use every new idea that comes along to use that to help learning occur. On the weekend, I discovered Periscope. I'll leave you to discover that yourself. But, that's a whole new way where everyone can broadcast their own TV channel to the world. So everything that comes along we need to look at. And the second point I would make is what's really helped us, I think, is to make it a whole of institutional approach. The Vice-Chancellor talks the same language as I do, as the deans of the faculty do, as the unit chairs do, as we all talk the same language, and the budget is there. So it's very hard to do it if, as can sometimes be the case in a university where teaching is competing with research for dollars and visibility and so on. And we're ambitious in the research space as well as everybody is, but it's about getting the message clear and well-resourced, I think. And I guess modelling what we want for students. We always say students want learning just in time and just for me, and that's how academics want to learn as well.
Kirsty?
Very similar to Pip as well about the incentives, but I was actually going to say, and Beverly's drawn on it as well, our learning and teaching strategy, new learning and teaching strategy goes live in a month, and in some respects it's quite nice. It looked very similar to the one from UNSW, the highlights that Ian showed this morning. There are, hopefully will be some differences, but it buys into the whole thing. It's an institutionalised way of how the institution's going. The actual blockers, if you like, or the people who are interested or are blocking this are outside our faculty. And we are seen as the faculty that will drive it forward within the university, the use of technology and the use of delivering education in the flipped classroom way, or whatever way you want to call it. So we're seen as the pioneers, and we're being supported to do that, and that's being driven right from the top, from the VC down, and that's probably the only way to do it. You are correct, yeah.
Thanks, Kirsty. And James, I'd like to go to you now and just hear from a student's point of view about what you feel about the way that you're being educated at the moment, is there much digital content being used in your course? And from what you've heard of and seen of the Best Network, how does that change the environment, the learning environment for students?
Yeah, sure. I was reflecting just then on the discussion around clunky technology. One of my cohort's lectures last week didn't get uploaded because the camera broke or something. I think that kind of stuff is like 2015. Like you record lectures on your phone, but the sort of Windows 95 type architecture behind IT at the university can't cope with taping a lecture and then uploading it onto the web so that you can view it later. And in saying that, I think personally, lectures are a really sort of outdated form of teaching which should have died off 100 years ago. But when that's the only resource that you sort of have for information transfer, then it's what students rely on, and they get sort of anxious when they lose it. And so this kind of discussion around, and I think students at my university also vote with their feet in terms of when they go to lectures. I don't see the point of sitting in a lecture for an hour with a very well-meaning doctor teaching me arm muscles, when there's a guy on YouTube who can teach me in 6 minutes and I can pause it when I need to, and he teaches me well, and I know he teaches me well because there's 3 million views on his video, and students all around the world are watching this guy. It's not just students at my university. So there should be a real shift in terms of how we think about collaboration, not even just within a few universities in Australia, but globally. And that's what I love about the Best Network. I saw some of their stuff. They came and spoke to our student council earlier this year. They've really been very proactive in trying to get the views of medical students into what we need. And yeah, it's just it's on point in terms of where medical education should be.
Yeah. And James, we saw this morning how the crowdsourcing of material can go beyond sourcing among academics, even down to the student level, where students can actually design courses and have them uploaded.
Yeah, and that's what
That's a good idea.
That's what my organisation's doing actually. The gaps that we see in medical education, we're sort of starting to fill with our own sort of short courses online that any student around Australia can do.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's an exciting space really. But I fear maybe institutions are very slow moving. And it might take a while to catch up.
Well, look, we'll go soon to the audience, but I just want to ask a couple other things of Draw and Nicholas. Draw, here's one for you. We heard earlier about the clunkiness of the systems in universities at the moment, and at Deakin they are describing their changes as going up to the cloud. You're working in the cloud. So how easy is it for universities to pull themselves out of these big LMSs that they have running and move into a different type of much more efficient environment?
I wish I could say it's easy. It's not. We work with many schools, many institutions, and there's a repeatable pattern. I'm talking about in the hundreds. And there's a repeatable pattern. Everybody complain about IT, including the IT people.
Yeah.
It's not gonna go away. I think it's a complex problem. IT systems are very complex. We need them. We rely on them. And once they get entrenched, it's very difficult to change them. It's an operation problem and an organization problem, not only technical. But the question is not how you can spend $50 million on upgrading a database system in a university. It's crazy stuff. But the question is really, how do you evolve this? How do you move to a more agile, more receptive to change, I guess, environment? And the solutions are simple. They're not too sophisticated. It's a change management challenge. You need to identify the early adopters, how do you say it, the people that go ahead of the charge ahead, and you need to empower them. and you need to make them as a case internally to the school to show that this works. And you have that during that period, you can't kill it because it's not integrated with the LMS, or it's not have been through procurement or whatever. You have that's innovation. And once you've got a change, I believe is inspired from the top, but starts at the groundswell, at the root, grassroots level. And so there's no simple answer to this. However, what we've been doing, and frankly, personally, I was inspired to start this journey about 10 years ago when I literally really hated the LMS that UNSW had. It was called WebCity. I met the CEO of the Blackboard. I bought WebCity. I have nothing personal against them. It's just it was a clunky product. And I remember studying for an exam in quantum mechanics. I'm a physics nerd. And I remember reading a book and going like, I can't believe I don't understand anything from the book. It's like some professor from Cambridge, he was really smart, wrote this book. He's really smart, but he's not helping me. So I went to the LMS, and there was a PDF from the lecture note. And I thought, wow, 2004, and the PDF, think about it. And then I went to Google and I searched simulation or visualization of how electron looks like in the atom. And I found a 3D visualization. I could click and watch it immediately, and I could rotate and play and learn immediately. And I remember going to my professor of physics that I was his tutor. I was tutoring for him, and saying, Mike, look at this. How can we make this be the thing we teach with? And he said, forget about it. Universities will never change. So I said, no. And here, 10 years later, we're getting there. It's coming. But it's really around the thing that happened in the last 10 years in the software world was around, in many other places, it's about design thinking. It's about putting your user at the head, at the center of the story, not at the byproduct of the story. So it's moving the importance. What's the importance? What's important is what James has his students care and want, and not what the researchers said. And I think there's no simple answer to the question you asked me, and I think I was trying to kind of describe the process how this evolves.
Yeah, sure. It's a complex one, but look, it's interesting actually that in what we're seeing in the way the best network works is that it comes up from below. No one's trying to impose an answer to what courses ought to be shared amongst universities. It just bubbles up from the academics themselves. Now, that's a sort of a very new way of looking at things, which is the way things work in the connected world now, but that's not really the way things work in large institutions. And I know there's some legal issues that keep on arising when universities look and see, well, you're going to share this stuff online? So, Nicholas, what sort of legal issues are arising and how are you dealing with them?
Well, look, I don't think the legal issues are too complex. The fundamental one is around copyright.
Yeah.
And I think, just it seems to be a lot of confusion, but the best network is not about copyright. Copyright, the creation of the academic remains with the academic. They keep copyright. The best network is built on the premise of the idea that an academic will license their copyright to the network for the purposes of non-commercial educational use. And so I think realistically, the legal issues aren't that complex. Lawyers do find other things which I struggle to understand around liability and other things which have to be worked through. And as we go through this process of negotiating with universities large and small, we're gradually becoming able to respond better to those questions. I just wanted to reflect though on what James said. And I've been an academic teaching pathology for 25 years, and only recently I've become aware of this site. It's called Pathoma. I'm sure James knows of it or heard of it. Most medical students in the world seem to know about Pathoma. It's this site in America, and there's a guy, and he delivers quite good content, lectures, diagrams, texts. He must have some helpers. Students pay him $100. And they say to me, why do I need you? I can go to Pathoma and I can pay them $100. Why do I need you? And I think that's a challenge that increasingly every academic is going to face. And I just wanted to make it clear that Best Network is here to help academics. it's not necessarily, in doing that, we hope that we'll improve the learning of students. And in doing that, we hope that we'll make institutions better able to respond to the pressures that face them. But it's really about giving academics an opportunity to be light on their feet and deliver the sorts of material that their students are expecting from them through resources that aren't ever going to be available within one institution. And so I just want to make that pitch clear.
Good point. Now, we have a couple of roving microphones out there. Are there any questions? Yes, up the back. And over there to the next.
Hi, Vanessa Hughes from the School of Nursing here at Sydney. Look, one of the most exciting features for me in using Smart Sparrow is the analytics. And what I want to ask is, how do the VCs actually envisage that we'll use that analytics to drive further student engagement outside of the feedback that we're offering in the Smart Sparrow framework?
Yeah, we'll take that one.
I'll have a go. I think most institutions are taking a pretty broad interest in analytics at the moment, and I'm sure we're all working away in our own ways at thinking about how we're going to use it, and in particular, data from which systems will be integrated in order to optimise the learning we can get out of analytics. And of course, a lot of that is sort of within the moment and within the sort of learning experience, but sometimes more integrated data streams are going to be more informative. There's a range of privacy issues to work through in that process. I know that's one of the things we're doing here now. But I think we're in a very exploratory and research space as far as analytics is concerned, and we're certainly treating it as a research enterprise at this stage. But there's huge interest and enthusiasm amongst staff to be better informed about student learning, and I think that's a really good thing.
Do you want to add something to that, Beverly?
Yes, I will, and I agree with Pip. I guess the thing is, we need to stay focused on what it is that we are looking at with the analytics. So the fact that, I mean, you know, no offence to Smart Sparrow, of course, but vendors often want to sell us big packages which will solve all our problems for, you know, several figure sums. And sometimes the ones I've looked at are showing me what the students click on, and that is of interest. But what is of really great interest is what they're actually learning, not just what they're looking at. You know, I mean, I can see already how many people viewed a lecture. Didn't mean they actually paid any attention to it or learnt something. So I guess it's about that. And again, it comes back to also the systems that are part of our legacy, that are not trivial, and the sort of useful information that we can get out of them. So to me, they're the two challenges that I would add to what Pip just said.
Okay. It's a second question also.
Maybe I respond?
Sure.
Take a short response. First of all, what's the purpose of analytics? What is analytics anyway? The purpose is continuous improvement, so that you have the data from which you can take an action, to which you can hopefully improve something. What is it that you're trying to improve is largely the question of what sort of analytics you should look at. If what you're trying to improve is failure rate, and you don't even have the data of like how many students are failing and when, a vendor who says, Smart Sparrow doesn't do that, but a vendor who says that, that's a value proposition to schools. If you're trying to optimize the amount of learning that students are, you're entering a difficult area. And that's the direction of research and then eventually a company and a product that I've been through a journey for 10 years. We said, I don't care where they click. I care, do they understand the topic? And we're like, okay, how do I know if they understand the topic from the data I've got? What data do you got? So when all you've got is content, and I'll make a distinction between content and learning experiences. When all you've got is content, which is text, videos, all you know is like, did they see it and did they look at it? It's a bit like saying, did they attend the lecture? Maybe they slept and play Facebook at the back, but they didn't listen to it. But when you move to talking about language, and you move to talk about learning experiences, Now, suddenly it's like, okay, that's an interesting way of thinking about it. So what is the learning experience here? So it could be the learning experience is reading something, answering multiple choice, based on your mistake, going somewhere else. But it could be that you're operating on a virtual patient. It could be that you're doing a virtual lab. Suddenly the bandwidth of data available out of this resource is way bigger. And you can actually build systems that will help you infer what students are learning and then take actions on that. Last comment is this. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in the United States has done a lot of research work in the last 7 years because they have a mission to improve the post-secondary success in the US. And they identified 2 technologies, if you want, that are transformative. The first one they called next generation courseware. And largely it's talking about rich digital learning experiences. It's not about content. It's not about textbooks online. So they talk about next generation courseware. The second one was analytics. So the idea that you can do continuous improvement based on data is transformative to this market, if you want to this sector.
Thanks, Drew.
Anastasia Mahaladou, Faculty of Medicine here at Sydney Uni. I just would like the panel to discuss the ethical approval, because having designed an e-learning module and wanting to publish in that area, we have to get ethics clearance. And so we've had to include a consent form, but that isn't engaging by students because they don't want to fill in another. What is the issue about ethics clearance? Because without it, we can't publish.
Okay.
If I could just comment, it is an issue. I don't think it's an issue you're going to get away from. You're going to have to get ethics approval from your students if you want to use the data, the rich analytics you're hearing about, and publish. You need ethics approval. So, for instance, in the BEST network, what we have done is in all the sites that have signed up, we have undertaken to get ethics approval on behalf of all the academics, and it's not quite visible yet, but we've created standard one-page, one-screen templates which have all the standard questions, have the ethics approval documentation, consent, don't consent forms for the students. And so an academic write their lesson, drag that page in, publish, and that means that they are covered by the ethics approval that's been cross-ratified at their institution. So I think we can only make it as easy as we possibly can for academics. And I think in a new academic starting up, it's a very daunting thing. It might take them 6 months to get that same approval. When often the project's over by then. So, my comment.
Pip, you've got something.
Yeah, no, I was just going to add to that. I mean, that's great to hear, and I'm sure every academic who uses the BEST network will be grateful to hear that. Institutionally, I think also there are opportunities, and certainly this is what we're pursuing in working with the ethics committee to gain the approval necessary to create anonymised databases that we can then actually make available for research in a relatively simple way.
And James, let me run that one past you. Do you think that students have got a problem with the data being published? No.
I can't think why. No.
Fine. Any more questions? Yes, at the front.
Thank you. I guess when we're a student going through university, we think we're here to learn to become experts in our own discipline. And I naively think, however, that society thinks that we're here at university also to become a more rounded person who understands how other people think. So I think we have to be very careful with learning which is just for me, that somehow in that learning model, we still have to include ways by which we understand the problems other people are having and how they think. And we have to ensure we've somehow, at the end of it all, got a humility for what your own discipline can do in isolation and how it might need to involve others. And so, as an example, when you're milling around university, you might bump into social scientists and lawyers and all these other people and have conversations with them. And there's great ways of doing that with IT as well. But I think it's really important we don't forget that component of education. But James, I guess I was wondering, medical students classically are highly focused on the learning outcomes to be a doctor. And I wonder to what extent you see your student body also valuing that breadth and maturation and broadening in outlook that people sort of imagine comes with a tertiary education rather than just the degree.
Sure, I think I've got to say, you can talk bad about medical education all you want, but having travelled the world and met a lot of other medical students' organisations, I think Australia probably does that best in terms of medicine, probably on par maybe with Canada and some parts of the US. You know, like there has certainly been a shift over the past 20 years in medical education in Australia to find more students who are the well-rounded communicators, interested in people, so they're able to talk with patients well and communicate well in teams. Yeah, like I recognise what you're saying, like about the certain social aspect about, you know, coming to a big place and all learning from one person, and I just think, you know, like I learn about most of the online resources that other people are using perhaps because I'm at university and I'm sitting around tables talking.
Yes.
Then go off and, you know, find my own space, learn just for me at another point in time.
I'll throw in an observation here, and I think that in a flipped learning classroom where you've actually got people in the classroom and communicating with each other, I think you actually will develop more skills than in the past, in the social area and in the communication area. But there's a further question up the back.
Hi, Gary Veland from School of Medical Sciences at UNSW. My question is regarding change management and strategic initiatives that might help to drive change at our universities. And one of the things that's been done at many US universities now is the implementation of learning design centres, which may be centralised or they may work with faculty to get learning designers, software developers and academics working together to develop things. And academics are very time poor, and they may see all this as just too hard to do themselves. What do you see as potential strategic enablers of this development?
Kirsty, you're in the midst of introducing new stuff at Macquarie. What's your view on that?
We've actually got a model that you described of learning designers and developers based within our faculty who are working very closely with the academics to develop the lessons and the future plans. We want to do the team-based approach to curriculum design, which is not just the academics, and it involves everybody. So we are actually modelling that way. And I wanted to just get back to this question here as well, because I think we're modelling team working, and I think the Best Network models team working very well as well. And I think that's great for students to see that we can work across institutions, universities, the world, to help develop what's best learning for them. And I think that's one of the best things about the Best Network, is the collaboration element. The resistors that we've met are along the lines of discipline leads saying that's my content or whatever. It's very interesting when you meet it. But when you start showing the advantages of working in groups and teams, they do it for research. We talked about this earlier. They do it for research. Why don't we do it for learning and teaching? It becomes evident to them that they can move forward. But I don't think you can do it without what you're describing, that team approach of learning designers and developers. There's two here in the audience from my faculty, and with the academics as well. It's the only way to go forward.
Thanks. There's a question up there, but I'll just throw a quick one in. For Draw and Nicholas, we are seeing all of this working in the medical area. What potential and prospects are there for moving into other areas of teaching? And what are the prospects of moving the Best Network internationally as well? I know you've got a few international members, but obviously to make it big worldwide, you'd really have to probably fend off some competitors emerging overseas.
Yeah, so I'll jump in first because Draw will be much more expansive than me on this. I think from the Best Network point of view, we are very much focused on what we call biomedical education, which is fairly broad. It goes to biology, to veterinary, to nursing, etc. But I know that the underlying tools that we're developing and using are obviously much more broadly applicable in other disciplines. I think also in terms of engagement with the rest of the world, I think it's very important from the Best Network point of view that we do that. There's potentially 40 odd institutions in Australia that could become members. Worldwide, there's, hundredfold more.
2,400.
2,400, thank you, John. And I think, and it is important because I think we have a product that we can sell, and the net benefit, I think, in this model comes back to the network. There's cost of delivering the stuff, but there is a benefit that comes back to the network, and the more institutions that we can engage internationally, and obviously our focus is mostly on North America, where they probably more approachable and amenable to this model. The more that we can do, then the better it is for the network as a whole. So unashamedly, we're interested in engaging internationally. I think also I would philanthropically, and touching on what Ian Jacobs was saying, I think there is also an important aspect of this in that the best network, a lot of the resources in the network are free of charge to anyone in the world who wants to use them. To pay money as an institution, you get value add, but they are free, and in the sense that can help third world countries and medical education in people in places where they don't have the expertise or finance to afford it, well, I think that's wonderful. I'm very happy that we can do that.
Draw.
So yes, we certainly from the beginning we had global aspirations in this team. I think it's having come from a different country. I grew up in Israel. I spent the last 14 years in Australia. I live now in the US. I'm helping the company grow up in America. Certainly, my wife is Australian and we're coming back. Certainly, there was global aspirations for this, what we consider to be a public good. I mean, Australia has a very good healthcare system worldwide in comparison, and also a very good healthcare education system worldwide. If we were originally given grant to build a network that would have, global potential. Why should Australia healthcare community be willing to create a resource that they share and for themselves? Would they be, let me phrase it like that, would they be happy to share it with other people in the world? The answer was unequivocally yes. And in fact, early on, when I was going to all sorts of conferences in the United States, in Australia, the funding bodies for research and education are governmental. In the US, there's a lot of private foundations, Bill Gates money, the Walmart family money, HP, all the sorts of foundations. That's actually quite interesting. And we were approached by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, folks that work there, and they're interested in promoting, post-secondary education success in America. And it was actually in April 2012, if I'm not mistaken, we just announced the best. Now we just won it. We'd literally just been told that, and I was so excited telling them about the vision, and they were so interested, and they start telling us about the projects in Africa, the projects in Pakistan and India, and asked us if when the best network is ready, would it be an interest in going into Africa and South America and in the US? And my answer was like, well, let me talk to Nick, and I think the answer is yes, we are interested. So that's also a segue to the second part, or the first part of your question about other disciplines. So 2 years later, the same foundation, a different team, put out what they call the Next Generation Courseware Challenge. And they were saying, they reach out to 120 or so companies that they consider to be innovative in the education technology space, and we were fortunate to have been approached. And they said, we would like to invite you to submit an application to this pot of money that we want to, and they made a shopping list of all the things they want: great content, engaging academics, data-driven improvements, analytics, research-based, and fundamentally improving the success of students, underrepresented and underprivileged students in the United States. So I asked them, why are you going to these companies? Don't you go typically to universities? And they said they moved too slow. We wanted this time gamble and go with the commercial. That was the first time. So we put an application, and what we've done is we actually partnered with Arizona State University, the world leader in education technology, and some other universities, similar to the concept of the best network. And what we wrote in the application is like, there's this thing called the best network. It works in Australia in biomedicine. We will do another teaching network with this community or network, if you want, of schools, science schools this time. and do it here in the United States. So the BEST network has already been inspired, and not the network, in science. This project was successful. There was 110 companies, about 70 of them approached, submitted, about 17 were selected to the second round, and then 7 were granted. And Smart Sparrow, together with Arizona State University, Columbia University, and a few others, succeeded. And it's largely because of the model that the network was, we were showing numbers that going up, and so that was fantastic. So I think that if you stop and think about the power of the internet as a communication technology to bring people together, and you start thinking about the disciplines, not the institutions, but the disciplines, science globally, science in the United States, medicine globally, medicine is in America, you start to see that the internet has the power to really create a new thing. And this teaching network, it's not a teachers network, it's a teaching network, it's not a social network. It's a very interesting model, and the BEST is definitely world's first in pioneering and being looked at by very influential people in the world. So I'm very excited to have been fortunate to have colleagues such as Nick and the other colleagues, and Gareth and many other colleagues that funded the BEST network. And now I'm also busy, and as you can see I'm a bit sleep deprived, also trying to do something similar in science in the United States.
Yeah. Thank you, Dror. Yeah. Question over there, I think.
Hi, my name's Rachel. I'm a physiotherapy lecturer at Charles Sturt University in Orange, so I'd like to fly the flag for allied health. And I've just produced a lesson on tracheostomy management. I think what was interesting for me was taking something that I've always taught by the bedside with a patient. So not just a theoretical concept, but actually something that's very real and dynamic and living and breathing in terms of a patient with a tracheostomy, but being able to put it into a platform that still allowed me to bring it to life in terms of scenario-based learning. And I think, with simulation-based learning being so talked about now, I think there are limitations to that, just like there's limitations to everything we try. And this, for me, was exciting because I can't bring a tracheostomized patient into the classroom. Yeah. I can't produce a tracheostomized patient in a laboratory or a virtual lab. But what I can do is write a scenario that then, through the platform, allowed me to branch off to the yeses and the nos and the what if this happened, what if that happened. And I even managed to create an emergency scenario. And I was so pleased with the outcome because it's so adaptive and so flexible. And I just wanted to share that experience that so far today we've probably heard about some very scientific theoretical concepts, but actually a really dynamic bedside scenario can also be done, and I'm delighted with the outcome. So can I also ask that there might be an allied health loop on the BEST network?
We're looking for a loop leader. Anyone?
Okay. But thank you. I just thought I'd share that because I think it's just a different way of looking at the platform and taking it from a very sort of scientific and conceptual concept to, that sort of patient scenario, which I still think is quite doable and exciting.
Great testimonial, thank you. But we are actually almost out of time. We've got about 1 minute left, if I speak generously. But Nicholas, do you have a response to that?
Well, look, I'm delighted. I'm delighted you've been able to create a lesson. It's not easy. It's not everyone's cup of tea. And I think the purpose of the network is really to help to take those few people who want to go out and do things ahead of the pack and make what they're doing available to the rest of people. And that's a really important part of the network. And just to touch on the idea of the loops, looping and this new version where it's discipline related, that the loops that are there are based on the number of cases that have been built. And if a group comes along and they start to build cases in allied health, they will get a loop, and we'll give you one anyway. But it's really, I think, again, comes back to the basic idea of academics being able to collaborate and finding people who are of like mind, who can have a similar background and can use those resources. I just wanted to mention that, as I said before, I've been teaching a long time, and gradually I've seen universities change, and teaching has changed enormously in my 25 years. When I started, there was a lot of people around me who were very, very experienced teachers. They had a lot of knowledge of how to handle students and manage the technology we had available then. And they were really helpful in helping me become an academic. Now, as I see new academics coming into departments, they're often very hollowed out. They have very much a focus on research because they know they'll get sacked if they don't, publish in research. And there is just a much less resources available to young academics to learn about teaching in their discipline. And so one of the things I think that these loops can do is to provide a way where academics can get help from their peers, even if they're no longer in the old-fashioned department that many of us will remember.
Thank you, Nicholas. That's a great observation. And I'd like to say thank you to all our panellists, and particularly to Beverly Oliver at Deakin, who has joined us online. Thanks, Beverly. And please join me in thanking them.